Good morning, Washington, D.C. Good afternoon, Libya. Welcome all to an extraordinary panel of experts discussion addressing what has to be done for December 24 general elections to take place in Libya. No doubt, Libyan people are longing for the opportunity to vote and truly elect their new leadership. They long for stability and for peace. Are we on a road to achieve just that, and what will it take? What electoral law and under which constitution elections would be held? Will the 2,000 foreign mercenaries leave Libya as mandated by the UN? Will militias be disarmed to ensure integrity of polling stations? What is the head of National Electoral Commission? Will he remain, or will the political trade-offs force him out, endangering the entire process? This and many other relevant issues we will listen our distinguished panel of experts from Libya, West, East, and South. With us today are Salmin Assad, women's rights activist, Zahra Langi, member of 75th UN Committee and CEO of the Libyan Women Platform for Peace, Mohammed El-Jar, is a political and security risk analyst focusing on Libya and a co-founder of a Libya Outlook for Research and Consulting and the regional manager of CRCM in North Africa. With us also is supposed to be Bashir Sewekli. I think with some technical issues, he is not with us, and Mohammed Hamadi, who is joining us from SEPHA, who is a youth activist organizer. Welcome all. Ahlan usahlan. We look forward to this discussion. We'll start with Zahra. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Thank you for this opportunity. Just a week before the LPDF convenes once again on the 26th and the 27th, and that would be moderated by by UNSMIL to finalize the constitutional rule by which we are going to hold our elections. And I take this opportunity, and as I'm running from one meeting to another, just to make sure that there is this public engagement, that there is this awareness enough about what exactly is needed for the coming elections in December, 24th of December. The first thing is the constitutional rule. So that's why next meeting is very, very important. And we need to make sure that next week's meeting of the LPDF will not fail. And let me tell you what exactly, and it's a pity that we members of the LPDF have been approached by UNSMIL like 10 days or maybe 2 weeks ago, informing us that we will convene, but they have not made a statement about this meeting to the public. And that kind of inaction actually allowed for the vacuum and allowed for the spreading of false fake news and disinformation. Certain groups have been posting and sharing on social media fake constitutional rule, the constitutional base, just to make sure that the public is against it. And the battle is still in Libya is what comes first, the referendum first or the elections first? How are we going to hold the elections? Let's be clear that Berlin process was all about, and the roadmap that we have established last November, is all about, it's a roadmap to the elections to reinforce the political legitimacy of the country. So that is goal number one. It's not to resolve the problem on the constitution. It has never been. Some factions, we call them the factions of the status quo, who want to maintain the status quo, wants it to be, and wants to confuse people. It's about the referendum. So the elections should be based on the constitution project, which is very problematic, which is very divisive issue in Libya. So let's be clear, the constitutional base has nothing to do with the constitution project. And this has been actually agreed upon within the legal committee that has been assigned and appointed by the LPDF to propose a constitutional base for the next elections. Some people now, for certain political agenda, want to take us back to square one, where we're saying, is it elections first or referendum first? We know that we cannot, if we're planning to hold the elections on time on the 24th of December, we cannot have it based on the constitutional project, because you need to have a referendum first. And there are many constitutional legal problems related to the referendum law and to the agreement that took place in Hurghada last January. Because of limitation of time, so I cannot go through, but I've myself have published on this, so it's there. So what do we need after next week? We will have only 4 weeks left for the deadline that we have set by the head of the Electoral Commission, whom certain groups try to restructure the Electoral Commission and change the head just to delay the elections. So this was one of the impediments, and with the support of certain countries like the US, who came out and said no changes at the moment to any significant commissions that might impede the elections on its set date. So according to the set date, the deadline by the head of the Electoral Commission, Imad Sayah, and security, which was endorsed by the Security Council itself, the last resolution, everything should be ready by the 1st of July. That includes the constitutional rule, not only finalized and approved. It has been finalized by the legal, and I'm representing here the legal committee. It has been finalized except for one major issue, which is the presidential elections, whether it's direct or non-direct. There are other small issues, but this is the issue. So we need to finalize it. So next meeting, we have to be, I will go through next one. And the other legislations that are needed in these coming 4 weeks are the electoral presidential law, parliamentary election law, and the district law. From what I know is Imad Sayah, the head of the Electoral Commission, has finalized proposals for these legislations and offered them today to Mr. Aguila Saleh, the head of HOR. Okay, so these are proposals. We have our proposal. If it's approved next week, then it should be adopted. Still, you need it to be adopted by the HOR in time. So next week, time is of essence, and next week is very critical. How can we, first of all, be ready for next week? First of all, we need to have the sessions aired. We need all sessions. Full transparency means all sessions, not like what the statement of ONSML had yesterday. And they were so late in their statement announcing the meeting. That should not be allowed to happen. Any kind of grave mistakes like that should not be allowed to happen. So they should announce full transparency. This is the right of Libyan people to know what is going to happen the next 2 days. So this is the first thing, to make sure that there is transparency, to make sure that these meetings are effective, and we make sure that spoilers, we can control the behavior of spoilers within these 2 days. The other thing, UNSMIL needs to get its act together. They need to be clear on how are they going to hold and moderate the next session. I always call, and I've been participating for the last, since 2013 in peace processes, and I see the mediation of Stephanie Williams is the best and the most effective, at least we can say. So you need that kind of mediation with bite, that maybe because she has a former American diplomat had, and that's why it's important to have the pressure and the backing of the 5 main superpower countries backing Kubish, and not allowing spoilers to spoil next meeting of LPDF. So their mechanism, they should be clear. We're not discussing all proposals. There's one proposal that should be only discussed, the aspects that has not been discussed, the quorum by which the LPDF will approve the constitutional proposal should be clear. And we have a precedence. There was an advisory committee appointed by the LPDF, which was appointed basically to set the mechanism by which they have to select the executive authority. The same mechanism should be applied again, so we don't go into any cycles of confusion. This should be clear. Then we should be also discussing what scenario B. What if we have approved it, we've taken it to the HOR, and HOR does not deliver on time? So we should give him, Mr. Aguila, a deadline, because we don't have time. Any mistake will cause for the collapse of everything. So that's, because of time, I've only focused on what the LPDF and the importance of the next meeting of the LPDF. But I want to focus on the importance of the role of social movements, grassroots, civil society, the campaigns. It's important because it places
you're frozen,
the pressure.
Zahra.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I think you're frozen. We can hear you now. Can you just say the closing sentence, and then we'll
Yes, the importance of the role of civil society to be engaged in the coming weeks. Calling for elections, direct call, concurrent parliamentary and presidential elections, making sure that the legislations are inclusive, especially for IDPs and those who are outside the country. All of these things will make us, will influence the turnout of the elections, the buy-in of Libyans of the elections. So all of this is important. Thank you again.
Thank you, Zahra. Really inspiring remarks and a lot of important messages. Transparency, broadcast sessions. Libyan people need to be fully engaged in their election process from the bottom to the top. And I had the privilege when I was on one of my visits to Libya to meet the Dr. Assaih, and a man of full integrity, and I'm sure that 99% of Libyans are proud of the Electoral Commission, and indeed, manipulating in any way, form, or shape with the Commission at this day means only keeping the status quo and maybe further highlighting the fears of Libyan people that the political elites may actually really work the deal that this status quo remains. We'll discuss this furthermore, lots to address. Let's now first go to South, a region that, from the issues between East and West and the disagreements, hence is somehow left out. I'm very happy that we have Mohammed from SEPHA with us. What's your views, Mohammed? What do you think is the best way forward? How do you see the elections? The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sasha. Thank you for having me in this important session with the fantastic key informers and influencers actually from my country, Libya. Actually, South is different situation because they don't give a lot of attention to the political process in general, and they don't even show any interesting for the next elections or what's going on the political stage, because they suffering from another issues. It's harsh life conditions and increasing very high increase in level of crimes, and also for affecting with the terrorism from the conflicts from the border countries. That's what, for example, what's happening in Chad recently and called the Idriss Deby. So there is a lot of another subjects, and it's more important for southern region citizens. But in general, civil society organization trying to do more efforts in order to raise awareness among those citizens, and also to bring it up, to bring this subject, important subjects. It's a future of the country. So they try to bring it in front of their priorities and interests. And there is a lot of here we showed the role of international community. I mean, a lot of international organizations who offer to fund and support local NGOs in order to lead some campaign awareness campaigns and projects in order to raise and spread this awareness. Another way, we as South people are suffering from also division of the government previously, and also from the dynamic conflicts. I mean, the control of army and control of another armed groups. It's very confusing for them, because they don't know how to deal or how to bring support or loyalty to that groups, because they don't feel secure. As I mentioned recently, for example, in Sabha, for a holy month of Ramadan, we have like 5 crimes per day, and this is very high rate of crimes in very small city like Sabha, 200,000 population. So this is very high rate, and there is fully absent of security institution rule, and I think it's a result of priorities, because the priority is a high level political and military conflicts. It's not on citizens' conditions. That's why I came to Madame Zahra says. She said very important point. She said we should push and encourage civil society to involve for next 2 weeks, and to help random people to understand more. This is very important event and action for your future. So so this is the general situation in the southern region.
Thank you, Mohammed. I will get back to a lot on different issues with Tebu, Tuareg, the border control, the human trafficking, all the preconditions that unfortunately, as you mentioned, of more concerns. But I think even this panel discussion we have now is one of those small attempts to re-energize the people in general and the young people to take an active part in this process. I know Mohammed Al-Jar wrote a paper which we will discuss as a one question later on: indirect or direct elections. What would that mean? What implications if we're talking on a presidential elections? Hurghada principles or LP of the Libyan political process. A lot of to digest before Mohammed. Salmin, greetings to you and your remarks on situations about the elections and what should be done.
Thank you, Sasha. Actually, in addition to what Mohammed and Zahra just mentioned, my concern is about the violence against women and the voters in general. We had election 2012 or 2014, but we know very well that in some cities, in some areas, it wasn't fair, it wasn't transparent, it wasn't safe even to go and vote. So here I will talk about the security situation in Libya in general. When I say in Libya, not only in Tripoli, not only in Benghazi, not only in Misrata, the big cities of Libya, but how to ensure the safest and the most fair situation. My concern is also about the assassination of women activists months ago, how we can guarantee this will not happen during the election. We all know, maybe other colleagues can talk about the pressures that the Minister of Foreign Affairs now having because of statements, because of her movement, because of I know it's difficult and challenge have elect more and more difficult and more complicated. And this is actually what concerns me, how we can guarantee the maximum degree of safety to ensure that we can run for election, to not get to have an equal opportunities for women economically. I don't know about media, how these things. Do we have a clear vision about the mechanism of campaigns and how to run the campaigns in months? These are all questions to discuss, and happy to go further.
Thank you, Saman. You've really raised a very important point, and you touched so a sensitive issue, which we have to put in a very first row of a Q&A later on. Now, Mohammed, here comes you. Last opening remarks, your views on electoral process, and then we'll open discussion between us.
Sure, and it's such a huge topic, to be honest, and there are many challenges, but I'll try and be very brief and give like few points for food for thought. And I will start by a reminder for all of us here, is that the Government of National Unity has a very limited mandate, and it has a very limited mandate that's contained within a very short time frame. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have set the 24th of December of this year as an election date. Potentially, I would have made sure that it's for 18 months or 2 years, but it has now been set. It has been agreed, it has been approved, and all of those that have won or lost have now subscribed to this, and they have agreed to this and made a commitment to this. So this is a very important reminder that this deadline has been set, and there is no going back on this deadline. The mandate of the Government of National Unity is very specific, and it is to unify state institutions that have been divided since 2014, and to prepare the environment for elections in Libya from an operational point of view, i.e. security and logistically, etc., but also to launch or to start with the National Reconciliation Project in Libya, and then to ensure that there is restoration of basic services in the country, and most importantly, to ensure that elections take place on the 24th of December. Why did the GNU come about anyway? The GNU came about because of the gripping legitimacy crisis in Libya. That legitimacy crisis started in November of 2013 specifically, when the GNC tried to extend its mandate beyond the February 2014 deadline set by the interim constitutional declaration. When they wanted to extend their mandate, what happened is that there was a nationwide movement against this extension. And then when they defied that nationwide movement and they wanted to extend their mandate anyway, and they did so in December of 2013, Khalifa Haftar was the result of that. He came on television and announced a coup in Libya, announced the freezing of the interim constitutional declaration. And then obviously that coup failed, but then a few months later, Khalifa Haftar ended up launching a military operation, dubbed Operation Dignity, that eventually gave Khalifa Haftar the prominence and the rise that he has. So we should learn from the lessons of the past when certain political groups or political minorities, as I call them, try and hijack the popular will of people for change through the ballot box. And this is a very important reminder for all of us. Now, the challenges that relate to elections, in my view, could be categorized broadly in the following. Before the 1st of July, which is the date set by HNIC as the deadline for having all the constitutional and legal requirement to hold elections on 24th of December, and these challenges relate to these political / legal constitutional debates. And unfortunately, we can see the status quo forces, namely the House of Representatives led by Aguila Saleh, the State Council led by Khalid al-Mishri, and now the Government of National Unity led by Abd al-Hamid al-Dbayba. These are in seats of power, and they don't want to give up on that power. And they're using various tactics to try and delay reaching the legal and constitutional requirements as outlined by Zahra. And then, after the 1st of July, if we have a constitutional basis and we have an electoral law, we have a huge task ahead of us to prepare the environment for elections in terms of participation, be it participation for candidates or participation for voters in the process, and making sure that there is a lot of awareness work and registration campaigns for voters, etc. And then the security, also the security environment, the question of security that Salmin raised. But most importantly, also, we have the post-24 December elections deadline. I mean, if we have elections on 24 December, what happens after that? And I think what we do now is going to be critical for the results. What type of electoral law will we choose for the elections? Will we choose an electoral law that will allow political parties to participate or not? Will we choose an electoral law that will entrench local conflicts? And this is what I am witnessing here in Tobruk, where I'm talking to you from. I also visited Jdabia recently. And if we do not go for example, political parties, voting will start to happen along tribal lines. The situation will be very tense after the elections. Some might choose to reject those elections. So all of that should be considered very carefully, and a lot of thought has to be going into that. And Libyan expertise, be it political scientists or be it constitutional legal scientists, should be sought in order to address these challenges. I will very, very quickly go over what I consider to be the status quo forces, and these are both foreign and domestic forces. If we talk about the anti-elections forces, these include, as I said, Aguila Saleh, Khalid al-Mishri, and the GNU's Abd al-Hamid al-Dbayba. And unfortunately, these have the backing of some powerful foreign actors, such as Turkey, Russia, and Egypt, who for now see the current environment and the status quo to be empowering them, empowering their influence and their presence on the ground. That is such a powerful current, because you have Libyans in power, and then you have countries that have presence on the ground and influence networks on the ground. On the other hand, you have the Europeans and the Americans support the elections, and then you have civil society, some political parties and entities. And until now, the president of the Presidency Council, Mohammed al-Mnifi, and his deputy al-Kuni in particular seem to also be supportive of the elections. But I think on the part of us, the Libyan side, and also the international community, there has to be a lot more coordination to ensure that there is some sort of a coalition that continues to grow and continues to become more robust and stronger in the face of that anti-elections coalition or status quo coalition. I will stop here, and then I will go into some of the recommendations that I have and we have been working on and circulated as well. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you also. Okay, let's pick up on this element of a possible obstructionists in a political scene. It's not only related to Libya. In many countries in the world, it's difficult to give a power, especially when you have a transition, and especially in Libya, where you have so many back and forth arguments over your really turbulent last decade since the overthrow of Gaddafi. But let me ask each and one of you, and please don't just answer this question. If you have anything that you would say to contribute discussion or to address from your colleagues, please do so. But my first question, let's agree, if we talk about the possible obstructions, do we all, and one by one, from the way we started the opening remarks, are we all in agreement that those who are trying to remove the electoral commission, putting that position as a sovereign in your internal discussion, should we all condemn this and say, and give a suggestion what should be done for the people, put them out of the political life? You can make recommendations to the Security Council. As you know, every member from the Libyan political dialogue signed the affidavit statement in Geneva of the pledge for the elections. So I believe there is also more deeper, serious attitude of the international community, with all the complexities of the international community based on some interest. And as you all know, the acting Assistant Secretary of State was just now in Tripoli with our ambassador and a special envoy. So I believe there is a strong determination on a key international players. So let's talk about the Electoral Commission, because that has steered a possible paranoia. If that happens, then what then?
Yes, thank you, Sasha, again for your question. I think maybe your question is outdated now, because I think the message, these spoilers you're asking about, the message has been heard by the international, by the spoilers from the international community. So I don't think that anyone would dare at the moment to restructure the Electoral Commission and change the head of its head at the moment. I think they will start with thinking of other tools and games to obstruct the elections. But again, your question is still valid if we're talking generally, what should the international community do facing these kind of movements from spoilers? I think the last Security Council resolution is a very powerful tool we have at our hands. And there is a reference to Chapter 7 when it comes to the political process, and this is quite rare because according to the last Security Council resolution, would be considered, is it stable or not, would be considered an act of violation to international peace and security. So that's clear. So we should be thinking of sanctions, travel ban, freeze of assets, as it has been before in other Security Council resolution like 2174 back in 2014, and we had also in 2015. So, but before you do that, there's some kind of coordination that needs to happen now with UNSMIL and the international missions in mapping these spoilers. That's why for us as Libyans, what we will do is have them on the spot on air. Let Libyans see who are the spoilers. But then you need mapping who are the spoilers. We should not allow what happened before when some of us were whistleblowers and said, there is corruptions, there is buying of votes. We did not, whether we reported it and it was a risk to our lives, but we did not see follow-up action. And that's why what we need to see today is not action that takes place when damage is done, but we need to take preventive measures. And preventive measures, that's important in mapping, to answer your spoilers. And I think there is a role, because Mohammed mentioned that spoilers are even internationals, foreign meddling countries. So I think next week, it's not a secret now, next month, there is a lot of talk about a second conference of Berlin conference, second round. And that's very important. We've been calling for that. The importance of having an international and regional track to build this regional and international consensus that we have to have this, make it successful. The failure not to have elections is not a failure of the LPDF only, or Libyans only. It's the failure of the Berlin process, the failure of the whole international community. That's why this meeting next month is very much important, and they should talk based on, and they have a powerful tool, which is the latest Security Council resolution about measures and what to be done for these spoilers, and name them.
Thank you. And you are right. I know this is outdated. I know of the outcry, but still, where is not outdated is exactly to where you said, because we have to keep repeating the spoilers and what they tried or what they may attempt to try, because I believe really Libyan people are fed up of spoilers. And I think to that end, that is not yet outdated. And look, as you all know, the US Congress has passed the Libya Stabilization Act that can sanction foreign countries, and there has been cannot militia sanctions, et cetera, et cetera. Great. Excellent points. I think that the sanctions, the travel ban, freezing of assets could be, and in my view, then should be done not just in the US alone, but in a coordination with the European Union. And in other regions, I can see now more coordinated efforts. Earlier, there were no mechanisms within the European Union, legal mechanisms as we have in the US with OFAC, treasury sanctions, etc. But that has been changed, and really the conditions are there for this round. Okay, so now Mohammed Hamadi, what's your read on this, and any comment, any reflections? Mohammed, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, today before this session, I had a meeting with election committee, the High Election Committee, actually, with then some international figures who planning to support the next elections, and they agreed to have another meeting with local representative next Monday, actually in Tripoli, and this is something related to launch some activities relation to preparing for next election. I mean, December 24th. And what I want to say that the High Commission is they are fighting back. There is spoilers, and they trying to stop them to do their job, and they're trying to push some poison news and poison relation even among the manager and employees and everything. So all these I mean all these behaviors is going on, but I believe that they are trying to fight back, and they have support from some foreigner embassies. This is what we heard already, that we even receive some money now in order to fund some logistic process, as what happened and HOR elections, and also with regard to another actions that they do. So also well, I can say that I know there is an international invasion already, and international um, uh, interaction in our conflicts as a Libyans. But what I can say is the local representative of those international parties already they had the power. I mean, they are decision makers, and we can't lose them uh, locally. I mean, this is something related to the Security Council. This is something to I mean, the correct will of the nations in order to fix this external invasion. So this is something we know as a Libyans. We know that the international community is a part of the game, and he can stop it actually if they want. But locally, what's most important to people, I mean, to the community. I don't go in for a high level thinking, because people that don't care. But I'm talking about the local mentality. They looking for someone or some united government who provide services for them, and this is what they're looking for. Maybe after elections of 24th, because they got bored from all these faces in the scene today.
Thank you, Mohammed. You brought a very important point. We will talk about the foreign influence later on, that also colleague Mohammed in Tobruk brought up. But let me just say one observation of this. I think you have a position also to shift the narrative. You always talk, there is I think, a need and an opportunity to build a national Libyan identity. I think this is what is, and I can, as a foreigner who've been with many Libyans and I love your country. I think I can understand, because you are under one system that was functioning in a certain way. I'm not going to say good, bad, or not. That's not the point. But you were with the one total different universe of its own compared to the rest of the world, as if. And now you are suddenly, you're grasping 10 years. And I think, yes, you talk about foreign influence and the importance and that they have power, but you have the power. Libyan people must have a power. And I think you need to start as the next generation of leaders, exercise this and talk about it, because you ultimately need to decide your destiny. You need to decide where your country is moving forward. Oh, sorry, I muted myself. Salmin now, and then Mohammed, you jump on right after Salmin.
Thank you, Sasha. Actually, I wanted to say what you just mentioned. I know that we all agree that changing the management or the head of management of ethnic now and at this time, it's not helping the situation, or it's not helping the election. But we keep relying about international intervention. Yes, it's there, it's a part of them, I know, but also I think we have a shortage in society, let's say, have shortage in awareness. People should know where the right move this time. This kind of awareness campaign and educating people about the laws, the importance of the laws, the timing, the mechanism, everything. This will lead to a national, let's say, a national movements that can take the final decision about this. Even, I mean, if the people, let's say, signed a statement from all over Libya saying that no, Ahmed Sayah should stay at this position till the end of the election. Who can change this thing? So yeah, I believe we all have a shortage in our role as a civil society and activists in Libya to aware people about the importance of these details.
I guess this is all about
Thank
going.
You, Sasha.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mohammed, your point. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I think the pro-elections forces in Libya, or the time is working against the pro-elections forces. And this is why I think that the time frame that was set was very short for elections to be organized, and for campaigns to be organized, and for awareness to happen, and for pressure to happen, and so on. We are trying to do, like civil society, political entities, and influencers, we are grappling for time to try and do something about the meeting next week of the LPDF, to try and pressure UNSMIL to not just convene, but to also facilitate and make sure that spoilers or political minorities are not given the opportunity to spoil. And unfortunately, the anti-elections forces in Libya have the luxury of time. All they need to do is to use various stalling tactics and delaying tactics. It could be talking about change of HNEC leadership. It could be about saying that, no, we need to reopen the constitutional basis that was adopted by the legal committee of the LPDF, and let's discuss it all over again, which would mean that we would need weeks for these discussions to conclude. And then the House of Representatives and Aguila Saleh might then also use the power that he has to adopt that constitutional basis and to agree on the electoral law to try and delay things further. And the way I see it from the ground is that Aguila Saleh and Khalid al-Mishri are already trying to position themselves for a new round of negotiations. They are taking extreme positions, with Khalid al-Mishri saying referendum first, and Aguila Saleh saying direct presidential elections based on law number 5 of 2014. To me, these are not entities that are looking to realize elections on 24th of December, but rather they're taking very extreme negotiating positions for potentially new round of negotiations. And that should not be allowed. In addition to what Zahra mentioned regarding sanctions, regarding high-level engagement from the international community through international conferences and visits and activities, support for civil society, engagement and support for pro-election forces, I think it's upon us, Libyans as well, civil society, political entities, influencers, political figures who want to see elections happen on 24th of December, we need to be working on the ground. We need to be here on the ground. We need to start the awareness campaigns. Those who are running for presidential elections need to start their campaigns. They need to open their offices across the country. They need to have their billboard, their training. They need to have that fever of election dominating so that it's difficult for the status quo forces to remain. They need to feel the heat that this is a popular demand, and that them delaying these elections will only result in other actors taking matters in their own hands, including actors like Khalifa Haftar or other armed groups that would be questioning the legitimacy of any authority after the 24th of December if we do not have elections. I think this has to be the message both from the pro-elections forces that need to really organize very quickly and on a grassroots level, and also to be complemented by international messaging, very robust and strong international messaging on these issues, and to be aware of the spoiling tactics of these these anti-elections forces. Zahra mentioned something regarding the mapping of these forces. It's very important that we do so, especially the LBDF members. There are between 6 to 8 members that are directly working with the government of Dbeiba right now, for example. There is a conflict of interest there that these people would be making an important decision. That should be used. Also, the UN redacted report, Annex 13 of the panel of experts on Libya should be used against individuals who would be inside the room trying to stall or prevent elections from taking place. That should be used against them as well. So I think these spoilers will stop at nothing, and I think the pro-elections camp should stop also at nothing to prevent them from spoiling.
Thank you, Mohammed. Good points there. Everybody getting on the same ball throughout the country. This, I think, that unity of civil society now could be really important. Just a few points on this. I think time is gone where the Libyan people would accept any other attempt for the autocracy. I think any attempt, if anything came good out of the Khalifa Haftar disastrous attack on the West, with the war crimes on Tarhuna, so many people killed, displaced, all we know is that Libyan people, in East as well, where they could not maybe be able to speak publicly, this time is over. That nobody can. I don't think that this would be possible. But I think talking on elections, we are running out of time, and there is so much to cover. But we have to wait what will happen next week. I think this will be viral. We're going to help with the newsletters. You will have it in Arabic. We'll consult it with you to help you spread these disseminate points. And as Zahra said, there will be an important upcoming meetings that we know. My 5 cents, I'm not a Libyan, I have no right to say that. Whatever law you take, whatever electoral law you take, at the end of the day, this may sound pretty naive, but it is true that the people can come and vote, because you have 2 governments now elected by the UN. You had the Sarraj government from Skirat in December 2015, who promised to organize elections in a year or 2 period. Okay, there was issues, there was a division, but there are always issues. And what happened? They stayed in power over 5 years. And so the Libyan people are fear of this. I think this cycle has to break. Let me ask you for the elections, a very important question. Foreign mercenaries, 20,000 foreign mercenaries, Syrians, there are reports that Russia is paying for another 300 Syrians to join Haftar forces, in spite that everybody are talking of mercenaries that need to leave, and the militias, issues of militias in Libya. How you can have elections. Let's say there will be elections. What's your recommendations in this time? How to deal with the issue, which is big issue in Libya, of a militia. I think Zahra, let's go the very same line as we.
Yes. So just before I go to your last question, I think the previous one, the one on an inclusive national narrative, I thought it was a very pertinent question. And I think it's much needed. And it could help, because one of the things that we were supposed to work on as a political dialogue early on when we had the first meeting during Ghassan Salama, on our agenda, not only a roadmap, we were supposed to talk about a national charter, a national inclusive narrative, and a roadmap, because all of these things are important to support the roadmap. That's why I still think there is a room, especially now. One of the things that the roadmap is supposed to, the milestones or supposed to establish, is the Commission of National Reconciliation. And I think it is tied, could be tied with the electoral process, because we, as Mohammed was saying, what will happen the day after elections. So we need maybe the LPDF or this commission that has not been structured yet, but has been established officially by the Presidential Council, have a role in establishing a national charter where all parties say they will commit to the results of the elections. So I think this is a tool that we can also recommend and suggest and could be helpful. And there are possible institutions that could provide for that. For your question, according to 5+5, according to the roadmap, mercenaries should exit the country with foreign forces, and it's clear in even the UN security resolutions, the latest one. However, we have transition, temporary government that it does not have even the enough legitimacy to do so. So it's very complicated, which comes before the other. And we know that the presence of these foreign forces and mercenaries will influence the electoral process negatively. We do know that. What I say is, and that's my slogan so far for this elections, it's not going to be a completely free elections, okay, from the onset. But we desperately need it. Libya desperately needs it. It should be free enough. Okay, and that would come to the next point I want to raise, is the importance of having international monitoring of the elections. Maybe the EU in part alone, or EU in partner with the African Union, but it's we never had international monitoring of the elections. I think this particular elections, especially with the context that you just raised now, need that kind of international monitoring. So it is important. And if we're going to take that decision, we have to take it next week. Time, again, is of essence.
That was exactly what I was referring to. Thank you, Zahra, very much. Thank you, really brilliant. Okay, Mohammed, especially in South, security is a predominantly important concern. Your 5 cents?
Yeah, I have been participated recently within security analysis research. And as a citizens, I didn't note behind the scenes or between the lines. But when you do some such work, you know the bad. I mean the bad reality. With regard to security, I think it's the biggest challenge against success of next elections. For now, we have dynamic conflicts going between the more stronger tribes in Sabah, for example, and those tribes, literally, they have plenty of candidates. And what I expect that those candidates, they will use their tribes, armed tribes, actually, in order to win wherever is matter. So this is one part. We're talking about the scenario of conflicts between candidates from armed tribes. The other one is with regard to the capacity of security institutions to protect the elections or the polling center, or even to protect the activists, or as Salmi mentioned, the women on level of voters and candidates. I don't think that they can do anything, because if we're talking about the exist one, they are even facing some troubles, because some thieves, they steal police cars, and they burn some police stations, and they kidnap some people belong to military. So even those, they can protect themselves. So we have a real problem. So what is the solution? The solution is, as Madam Zahra said, there's an important need and desperate need to exist of international monitoring, because as remember 2012, when we're talking about GNA elections, the international monitoring exists, have a very good and very positive role in order to succeed the elections in general. We're talking about institutions concerned about elections like NDI and some IFES and other institutions, and also we're talking about exist of maybe like a special security mission to protect the voting process. Because as I mentioned, I'm talking about the South, because I feel that there is there is a hidden hand. They waiting to lose all other other tries in the East and the West. If they didn't succeed to spoil the elections, I think they will use the South, because they will make it. They will maybe run some conflicts to make it as a volcano, so we can't have election without South or Southern region. Thank you.
I want to ask you, Mohammed, one more. Stay there.
Yeah, I'm here.
What is the look? As you know, there was a Tebu Taureg peace agreement signed in Italy. It was during the Sarraj government. There were some reparations to be paid. Sarraj government never paid them. There were backdoor dealings as to why. The command was not. I think it was all part of then Sarraj Haftar negotiations. There is a lot of these back channel stories that influence the outcome of what genuinely people in Libya want. It's a peace and stability and a normal life. One quick question. Today, what is the mood in the South for the elections? What is the mood?
The general mood that people, they don't care about it. They don't even think about it. They don't talk about it. I'm talking about the people. And also, I don't think that they are encouraged enough even to register for voting. We can know that from the municipal elections that we had a couple months ago. The percentage is so shy. The participation is less than 10 or 15% from the total number of who has the right to vote. When we're talking about the mood is ready to conflicts, or maybe clashes between the candidates, because you can note on social media, you can note in our cafe sessions, or even in the gym, wherever you go, you can note that there's a lot of names they proposed and candidate to the next elections. And they are from tribes who own literally a lot of guns, a lot of weapons. So this is something, if it's not controlled enough, if it's not planned enough, it will lead to explosion in the situation, I think.
Thank you. Very informative. Appreciate. Inshallah, that won't be the case. Salmin, your thoughts, and then Mohammed.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone else just mentioned. International monitoring is important. It's a must, actually. Let me say it's a must now at this stage. But also the facilitation of we don't want to repeat the same mistakes of the 2 past elections or the 3 past elections, if we are counting the commission, drafting commission of the constitution. So facilitating the process itself for people. For example, I remember at the first election, I wasn't able to vote because I was registered in Benghazi, but at the day of the registration, I was traveling for urgent thing in Tripoli, so I wasn't able to vote. These kind of things, like Libyan women who are married to non-Libyan, the problems, the administration part here, it should be solved. The Libyan diaspora, the people who didn't issue their ID documents. We have a lot of issues that I hope that someone is taking care, or at least discussing, or at the moment, because as Zahra said, we run out of time. Yani, there is no enough time to solve all these issues. And yes, maybe these are minor issues in other communities, but for Libyan small community, it will affect every 1,000, and every number is important in the election. We don't want to end up with a president that got 5,000 votes for the whole country. So, and there is also the presidential election, the parliamentary election part, that maybe Zahra knows more details about this and can, as we heard, the last decision will be for the LPDF to discuss. The electoral law, who will draft the electoral law? Who will draft this based on that? We don't have, let's say it clearly, we don't have political parties by the meaning of political parties in Libya, and we know that this is the main bulb, let's say, of the election. So we don't want to end up with random people who just decided to run for election, but they don't know the basics, and we start the whole process. Someone talked about sanctions before. I don't believe that sanctions can help at this time, maybe in the future, because most of the people politicians who we are having now since 2014 are already listed in some international list, but they're still working, and they are still deciding, and they're still blocking some process in the Libyan political scene. So yes, we have a lot of things to discuss and to focus on. I don't think we have enough time we don't have the luxury of time to discuss it now, but maybe, yeah, in the upcoming days.
You really brought a very important point. There are so many displaced people now, so many refugees, and all of it, and how they will register, where they will register, how this, there is a lot to what people usually call under the technical details. Mohammed, I want to go back to this, but Mohammed, you give quick 2 minutes around it, because my last question, I will give it to you right now so you guys can think about it. My last question would be, gender equality, the 30% of women signed in senior positions. Will the women go for the positions? What is your experience on the ground? How to really support this, and this gap doesn't become marginalized? And what would be your advices on that? That's how we will end it, which I think is highly appropriate. Mohammed, 2 minutes on the monitorings and topic said, reflection, and then
thank you. I will respond to everything, including your last question, for the sake of time as well. Unfortunately, I think, as I said, obviously there is a very short time frame here, and we are being distracted by spoilers using various tactics from focusing on important things that should enable us to have meaningful elections on the 24th of December. Things like the issue of participation, be it for voters or for candidates. Can candidates campaign freely, especially presidential candidates? Can they campaign freely across Libya? If someone like Abdel Hakim Belhaj wants to run for president, can he campaign in Benghazi or in the east? And would Khalifa Haftar be able to campaign in Misrata or in Zwara or in Tripoli? This requires what Zahra earlier talked about. We need to have a peace conference in Libya as early as July, a peace conference where all the key social and political actors and institutions would come together and indeed agree on a minimum threshold of requirements for the post-elections, honoring the election results, making sure that whoever wins governs for all and does not use whatever popular legitimacy they use to target others. And very quickly on the issue of mercenaries as well. On the issue of foreign mercenaries, I don't think that the current government can get them out. Only an elected government with a very clear popular mandate has a chance of getting foreign mercenaries out. But I think the issue of foreign mercenaries could become an electoral campaign, an elections campaign issue or an elections issue. It could become a public opinion issue. It would then herald or start the process of putting pressure on Turkey, on Russia and others to actually get these people out. And then for a democratically elected government to finish off the task. And something very important also to keep in mind. Since the elections of 2012, the will of the Libyan people has been disrespected and ignored by political minorities, be it the political Islamists / those who appointed themselves as guardians of the revolution in Libya, by preventing Mahmoud Jibril and the National Forces Alliance in 2012 from ruling and from choosing a government and ruling, despite the fact that they won the majority of the popular vote across the country. And then we, as a result of that, ended up with the likes of Khalifa Haftar, a military dictator or wannabe in Libya. So what is really important is that we should be looking at the lessons learned from the past. What did people in 2012 voted for? They voted for progressives. They voted for civil / democratic rule in Libya when they voted for the National Forces Alliance and someone like Mahmoud Jibril. I think it's very important for Libya to start to move beyond Islamists and autocrats alike, because these two forces, be it military autocrats or Islamist autocrats, are feeding off each other at the expense of the will of the Libyan people for a prosperous, democratic, civil institutions and rule of law-based society and state. And this is extremely important. And on your question on the gender equality, I think, again, this speaks to the issue of participation. And even if women are given 30% quota, will the environment be safe enough for women to operate? Look at the attacks and the incitement against the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Libya, just because she called for the departure of all foreign mercenaries and forces. The environment is especially dangerous for women in high public office in Libya. So it is not just a matter of participation of women in government, but rather affording them the environment that enables them to operate effectively and freely as well, from pressure, incitement, and violence. And I'll stop here.
Thank you, Mohammed. And that was your closing remark. Well received, very good points on there. I think we all agree the national unity and inclusiveness with all the differences should be the way forward. Okay, last words. You can reflect on anything else you deemed. Each of you 3 minutes maximum. Gender equality, key topic What to do?
Okay. I think when it comes to women's, I don't like to say empowerment, I would rather say gender equality, but I would say the train has left the station. And what I've been seeing in Libya since 2011, when it comes to women, I see it as irreversible empowerment. Yes, there has been systematic political violence against women over and over, and not holding the perpetrators accountable. This gave thrive the whole culture of impunity and has increased this attack on women. But the glass ceiling has been broken. And I tell you something, I don't worry about women in Libya, and I don't worry about gender equality. Whether they like it or not, what they are doing is, shows only their frustration. What we have been seeing in Libya over and over is basically a manifestation of emasculation. It's happening. And glory to God that we're witnessing this moment, okay? We have 30%. And the first thing that these men around the table give to us is the 30%, okay? So the next constitutional rule that we are debating, you have a 30% minimum of women will be represented in the legislative and the executive authorities in the next phase. In the electoral law, we'll make sure it's a zipper list and we will have 50%. Just get ready. Yes, there will be losses. I always recall my friend Salwa Bougargis, who was assassinated on the day of the last parliamentary elections after casting her vote. And I see that we will still pay more sacrifices, God forbids, but it's happening. We have a foreign minister, we have a justice minister. Like it or not, the foreign minister is shining more than the other ministers. And yes, it is toxic masculinity. A lot of people did not like it when I said it's toxic masculinity. It is toxic masculinity. It's not about her policies and her views and her political views and her, when she said everyone should be out, this is the roadmap. This is the Security Council resolutions. But because of toxic masculinity, that's the only thing that explains their attitudes. They're desperate, but it is irreversible empowerment. We cannot go back. And soon enough, we'll see a prime minister for Libya and maybe a vice president and then a president for Libya, who is a woman. Mark my words.
Bravo, Zahra. Thank you very much for this inspiring, really crescendo to the very end. Mohammed?
Yeah, thank you. We came to the end. I just want to raise some points within the privacy of the southern region. We have some problems might affect directly the elections. Actually, we're talking about cultural minorities, Tuareg and Tibu. We're talking about people who has no identity or who has no rights to vote or civil rights. I'm talking about people who has no national numbers, and the state is not solving this issue yet. And it's when it comes to the southern region, they are very large sample, large number of people came from tribes who migrant to Africa or maybe Tunisia or I don't know Egypt when Italian comes to invasion Libya. But anyway, this is something also has to be discussed because they don't have right to vote, and they recently, I think in the municipal elections, they express their anger with actions like closing voting centers, and they spoil some elections in some municipalities in the southern region, and that might be bigger in next election on level of the state, and this is very important to highlight. And also with regard to when we come to gender equality, actually, as Madam Zahra said, I'm afraid that men, we will have less luck in future, because women, they going very fast, like a pilot train actually in Japan. So yeah, I think they know their destination, they know their goals, and they know how to get their rights. I'm not afraid about that, and we can see that reflect and the, I mean the current government, and also I'm talking from my career. I can see that from my colleagues, from female one. I think they can take in our positions because they perform better than us, and this is something that I can confess. So I don't afraid about Libyan women. I can see their futures too brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohammed. And let me address one important issue you brought up. For the Zehra corrected me very rightly on word empowerment. Very good. It's not a good word actually. So is the minority is not a very good. There is an issue of minorities, and every minority, every culture, every tradition, every language needs to be cherished and protected anywhere in the world. Nobody will lose anything by doing so. This cannot and should not be even a topic for a discussion, and I hope that awareness is also going to come into Libyan society over the issue that you have importantly raised. And we will have on this platform special discussion over this topic, and I'm very grateful that you said. And on the other point, well, good. You just it is a fast running train, and God's willing, it's always good. It's only good for the society. Salmin, you are actually having a last word before we end, because Mohammed already said everything. So we will end with the.
Yeah, actually, this question should be in a separate session, I believe. I like the spirit that Zahra talked with, but I actually am not optimistic when it comes to women in Libya. Yes, we had the 30% stated in the roadmap, but what we got at the end, not 50%, just 15% of the positions, high positions in the government. And now I'm not worried about the women to run for election. I'm worried about the women as voters, because we know very well that the movement of the Libyan women in most of Libya is limited. And I'm afraid that this vote will be used for by other by specific people or specific ideologies. That's why I talked about facilitation of the process. And instead of registering in a specific place and you have to go to this specific place, we should come up with something more flexible for those who cannot reach the places. And this is technical part that the other part will be the electoral law and the constitution, that if Zahra guaranteed the 50%, then khalas, we don't have an issue on that. So yeah, I would close of saying that security is the main concern here, and I think for men and women in Libya, but maybe we have more social pressure to be to face as a Libyan women. Not talking about me or Zahra or women in the scene now, but we are talking about the ordinary women in Libya. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you, Salmin. And maybe this, you and Zahra today, hopefully have inspired other young women and women in general to take more active role. And this is exactly why this is all important. I want to thank you for being with us today. I want to thank our viewers around the world. And peace, unity, and best of luck to our brothers and sisters in Libya. Ma salama. We will be in touch, and until next time around, God bless you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Ma salama.